Hi, this is LeVar McBride, Penn State University. I have the privilege to be here today with Dwayne Peace. And Dwayne Peace and I are great friends. We met several years ago in a campground, and it was a great opportunity to get to know each other and to get to know what each other do in our careers. And Dwayne has a very unique opportunity that he has developed up in Canada, and I wanted to share with all of you what Dwayne does. It's a very important program. It's called Synergy for Youth. And Dwayne, why don't you just give us a little bit of your background, talk to us about what you've done in the past and how you got started with this work with Synergy for Youth.
Sure. Well, I was a member of the Calgary Police Service in Calgary, Canada for 25 years and 9 days, not that I was counting. And I retired in November of 2003. The last 6.5 years I was a policeman. I was a school resource officer. So in Calgary, every high school has a police officer attached to it. My first high school is James Fowler High School. At that time, Fowler had over 1,550 students in it. Over 51 nations represented in that high school. So as a white male, I was a minority in that school. But a very unique relationship with the student body there. 2 out of the 4 years that I was there, I was voted on by the grads to be the guest speaker for their grad ceremonies. I think you already read me, that's pretty weird, right? And so I did some really cool things there. And the reason I do what I do is because when I was a policeman in the schools, I saw great students making bad choices, not aware of the consequences. And my worst days as a policeman is when I would charge a student and they would look at me and go, Constable Peace, I didn't know that. If I'd known that, I wouldn't have done it. So I developed sessions to educate them so they could not say they did not know. It's like, nope, you did know, you just chose not to listen. Here's your court date, here's your fingerprint date, here's your ticket, whatever. And so that's where it started. And so when I retired, I just took what I was doing with parents and students in that into a company that is Life Synergy for Youth. And I travel around Canada. I was February of this year, I was in Bermuda for my 13th time working in Bermuda. Obviously, the work we did at 3 different campuses in Penn State University. And so I just love what it is that I do. And this is an opportunity to address the people of this conference here that I wish I could have been there for you guys or with you guys. I would have loved, because it's nice to be with like-minded people. But unfortunately, with my schedule, I wasn't able to be there.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to meet with me to share with the folks what you're doing. You know, one of the things about the conference that they're doing here in Pennsylvania is working with the mental health issues in the schools.
Yeah.
And the fact that there's a lot of things that are happening over the last several months. We've seen several school shootings. Yeah. We've seen a rise in suicide. We've seen all of these things. And, you know, when we talk about why are these things happening in our schools? Why are we missing the signs? Why are these things happening? What's your opinion on what is it that we're doing not only in our homes but in the schools that possibly we could improve upon to prevent these kinds of things rather than just, you know, blame it on the guns? Yeah. That's what we tend to do, and you know it's a mutual issue. There's a lot of issues involved here, but what's your opinion on how we address that issue with the kids?
Well, I think it starts at home, and I think that's why, like, I have professional development days, parent sessions, and work that I do with the students. I think that it starts at home. I find that a lot of parents are connected to their kids when they're in elementary school. They're in the schools. Everything is like, oh, it's all about the kids. In junior high, they start to kind of stand back a little bit. And when their children get into high school, it's almost like, okay, now we're talking about retirement and where are we going to go from here in our life, because pretty soon they're going to be out of the house. And so I think a lot of it starts at home. I think that when I do my professional development days, we have teachers that either shouldn't be teachers or really are not there for the right reasons. They're there because they want to have the summers off, or they don't want to work overtime, or it was just something that they had to do, and they're not really passionate about it. And when I do my professional development days, one of the things that I say is that if you're not passionate about being a teacher, become passionate or quit. Because the students can feel it, the staff can see it, and in some cases it's a cancer in the staff room. In regards to the guns don't kill people, people kill people. I was a policeman for 25 years. I had a gun at my side for 25 years. Never killed a person. And so when you combine the issues that we're having, mental health issues, with guns, that's not a good combination to have. In the US, I think you are averaging around 123 suicides a day is what you're averaging. And I think it would be
And
interesting.
a lot of those are youth.
Absolutely. I think it'd be interesting to find out how many of those occur with the use of firearms. Because if you're going to do another method, then obviously there's time to prepare, time to think, and time to back out. But with a gun, if you're under the influence of drugs or alcohol, it's a pretty quick fix. Mm-hmm. And so one of the pet peeves I have is people that say that you commit suicide or you attempt suicide. The terminology I use is that you don't attempt suicide, you act on your suicidal thoughts, and you don't commit suicide, you die of suicide. Just like you don't commit cancer, you die of cancer, and you die of suicide. And so when I'm traveling around educating people on the terminology I would prefer them to use, because if you attempt, obviously you weren't successful, which is just one more thing you can chalk up that you couldn't do properly. And so I think that we need to clear up some of the terminology around that as well.
Yeah. So, some of the, the work that I do in working with these families, and one of the questions that they always ask is, why would this person commit this crime? Why did they do this? Mm-hmm. And, unfortunately, a lot of the perpetrators that I've worked with are teenagers, in these schools that commit these crimes. Mm-hmm. And, one of the things that we worry about is, well, how do we catch these things? I mean, if I'm going to prevent these things from happening, how do I prevent it? And at this conference is Bob and Arlene Holmes, and their son James was involved in the Aurora Theater shooting. And one of the things that they brought out and that they are bringing out in this conference is the fact that there are things, of course, that they missed as parents, but also things that the school missed. Yeah. For example, just to give you an example, and then I want your comments on this. One of the teachers said that James is a quiet boy, so we just left him alone. So we're not talking just about the kids that are rowdy, that act out. We're talking about the silent kids. We're talking about the kids that maybe are not, involved in a lot of rambunctious things where they get expelled from school, but they're real quiet. So how do we address all those issues? And I know, participating with you up at Penn State, it was interesting how you brought kids from all different arenas, the jocks, the cheerleaders, the skaters, gothics, and all these types of people. You bring all those people together and get them talking. What's the value of that?
Well, I think the one thing that I do that's very valuable is that I give them permission to talk to adults. So in 2010 school year, I had 49 students come to me with suicide where no adult knew. If an adult knows, I don't include them in the numbers because they have support, or they should have the support. So starting in 2010, 2011 school year, it went 49, 38, 28, 47. It went down to 18, 24, 12, and just finishing off this school year here, 15. And those are only the ones that I'm aware of. Those are not the ones that go to the counselor after I leave the school. Those are the ones that come directly to me and let me know self-harm, suicide, and that where no adult knows. I think that we have to do a better job of just reaching out to the kids and making sure that they know that we care. I think there are some students out there that believe that nobody believes in them, and if they were to die today, nobody would miss them tomorrow. They don't feel that they matter. And I think that unfortunately some of that falls on the staff, and it shouldn't, because teachers don't get paid enough for what they do. But they need to be connected with the kids, because in a lot of cases the kids are key latch kids, where they just come home and unlock the door and mom and dad show up just before bedtime. So I think that the students, we need to give them permission to talk, and we need to understand, allow them to see that we have a lot more in common than what makes us different. And in the small group session, you saw that we accomplished that. Yep. They come in thinking they're the only one going through all this, and then they realize we're all going through this. Yep. Just as adults do as well. And we need to give them permission to talk. And through the small group sessions, so we do the assembly to give everybody the same base knowledge. Then through the small group sessions, we end up giving them the tools that they need to create the school that it should be. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the incidences that you and I have talked about, we have, when it's all over, there's signs. And if you could get everybody putting those signs together, we could stop a lot of this stuff from happening. Yeah. The unfortunate part is that nobody's really communicating. Right. And so we need to have the students safely know that they have a voice. So I have students that after I'm done, they will actually contact me and say, this is what's happening with this person in our school. I'm their friend. I don't want to do anything, because if I do, I'll lose them as a friend. And right now I'm the only friend they have. can you do something? I said, yeah, absolutely. So they give me the number and all that kind of stuff, the name of the person, all that stuff. And even if it's at a different school, I will contact that school, let them know what it is that I do, let them know that this is a concern that somebody has, a Mr. or Mrs. Anonymous has about this student. And in a lot of cases, the school's already aware of it or had belief in that area but wasn't sure, and this just gives them that extra information where they can actually act on it and move forward with whatever proactive thing they want to do with this child.
Sure. One of the things that I found unique when I sat there and observed Dwayne doing both, not only the big group session but also the small group sessions, is the fact that it's something that you don't see in schools. I mean, that is, oftentimes you'll see an assembly come in and it'll be a motivational speaker and somebody will motivate you. What does your program offer that's that's unique to, say, someone coming in and doing that? Because this is my observation, then maybe expand on that. My observation is that you teach them how to live the rest of their life. And then you teach them that you can do this within your school, and I don't have to be here to do it.
Exactly.
And you do follow-up sessions with them, and you kind of coax them along the way, and then you say, you can do this, you can accomplish this. So maybe share with them some of those unique, components of your program that I think are vital, that our schools are missing, not only in Canada, but in America. Yeah. And the fact that we're not, addressing those issues properly.
Well, I think it's really difficult for us to solve the issues with youth because they know the issues best. So who's going to solve it best is probably them if you give them the tools. So the assembly gives them all the same base knowledge. It's a 3-hour assembly, and people go, 3 hours? Are you kidding me? You're going to keep... And so, I had 1,150 grade 10, 11, and 12 students in a school for 3 hours. And the staff were like, we can't even keep them for 45 minutes. How can you keep them for 3 hours? And it's basically, they can play video games for 6 hours. If it's engaging to them and it's real to them, you can keep them engaged. So the assembly gives them all the same base knowledge. The small
let me just add
ahead.
that I sat through the assembly and I was going, this thing's over, because and that was 3 hours, and it's exactly what you're talking about. So I just wanted to say that I have experienced that, and
thank you.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, it is great. I love what it is I do. I'm passionate about what it is that I do as well. And so the small group session takes that to a whole other level. And the most power I've seen is when you do a classroom and their homeroom teacher, if the school's set up that way, because not everybody is, but if they're set up that way, and the reason being is the students get to see the teacher as more than a teacher. This is actually a real person who cares for them. So the respect level from the students to the staff member go way up through the roof. The respect from the staff member to the students go further up, because now they realize, this child is this way. It's a miracle they actually attend school, little function based on what they've got going on in their life. Sure. And so through the small group session, we talk about life. We talk about, are you being your best, or are you just cruising? Are you just coasting? Because coasting does not serve you. And so I give them some tools in that they can use through there, create a common language within the school that they can use, and some tools that they have as well to keep this thing going. And you mentioned the follow-up. There's follow-ups we can do as well. But what a lot of schools do is they have me come in and do this, and then I earn the credibility with the students. Then they have me come back and do a drug presentation. And then the kids are listening with a different ear, because it's not me just going whop, 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 like Charlie Brown's teacher. It's actually me. They actually say, shut up and listen to this guy, because he's speaking the truth. Yeah. And so...
it's a language they understand.
Absolutely it is.
Yeah.
Absolutely it is.
Yeah. And when you... it's interesting, too, that some of the students have said to me that went through the program with you is, and I love this, is they put in their evaluations, they said, you need to do this at the beginning of every semester at the university with all students, because it connects the students with each other, but it also helps them to know that they can reach out and get help from adults and from campus people, in my situation at campuses. But that's a very valuable tool for students to be able to be empowered to take care of themselves and to know that it's okay. It's okay to do these things. And so, one of the things that I want this audience to understand is that, we have a lot of problems that are happening in our communities with our children in school, at home. And what is it that you believe that this program can offer to the administrators to give them that support and that help, as they continue on in their job?
Well, what it does is it gives the children a voice. It empowers them. And I think that that's very important. That's why it's called life synergy for youth, because connected, we're much stronger than we are as one. So what it's going to do for the administration is it's going to give them a common language when they're dealing with those difficult situations that administrators normally do. They will find that kids will come up and talk to them about stuff they never did before, because now they realize that we're all in this together. It's not an us versus them kind of thing, that the staff are actually here because they care about us, and that we can actually talk to them and they won't put on the Superman cape and make things worse. They'll actually listen to us and act on it reasonably. To me, when I have somebody talking to me that's being bullied or whatever the case is, to me, the victory is not that I'm going to run in and save it and make it better. The victory to me is that they're actually talking to me, that they actually have somebody they can go to help them process this, rather than keeping it all inside, which obviously can lead to some negative consequences as well. For staff members, it gives them a common language to work with the students, but also a different level of respect. Classroom management is much easier now, because the kids know what it's like to get focused and to realize that they're here for a reason and not just to coast through and hang out with their friends. It's not a social thing, that they're actually there for a reason. I have been to schools for 9 and 10 years in a row. Every year they have me come back and do the new grade. So if it's a grade 9 to 12 school, they have me come in and do the grade 9s and the newly enrolled 10s, 11s, and 12s. Then I do a bunch of small groups for the entire week at those schools. And they've said it changed the culture of the school. I mean, you saw exactly what I'm talking about in Penn State. The students all of a sudden, instead of normally they would get up and leave after the class was over, they're now hanging around and talking and finding out what's going on. The conversations you had with your class went to a much deeper level after we did the small group session. There was more respect, more compassion, and I would suggest probably less anxiety with some of them as well.
Absolutely, and also it created an opportunity for those students to open up in the classroom more, because I noticed my discussions in class became better, that they were more involved, they were engaged, they were laughing with each other, they were going out to dinner together, they were hanging out together. It was amazing, and it was systematically in every one of their evaluations at the end of the semester that was a turning point in their participation in the course. And so if we can get that started, one of the things you brought up, this idea of if we can get them to talk, if we can get these youth to talk, what is it you do in the small group sessions to get these guys, these young people to the point where they're comfortable in sharing? Because as they sat there, one of the questions you asked, in my heart I fill. Well, that's a tough question for young people. How do you get them to that point where they just open up and express themselves like that? Because that was an amazing experience to watch that happen.
Well, first of all, before we even get to that point, we've already gone an hour and a half in the small group session beforehand of me sharing my story and letting them know some spots of me that are vulnerable as well. And so they get to see that there is strength in tears and there's strength in vulnerability as well. And a lot of them feel that that's a weakness. And so I demonstrate that it's a strength. We talk about the fact that why are we actually here? Why are we here? What are we doing? And what's our purpose for being in the school here? After I'm done, then we have the staff members go, so the students get to see, oh my gosh, like I didn't know this about this person, this staff member and all that stuff, and how much they care. And then when it comes time to the students, one student gets to volunteer to go first. They only have 60 seconds to finish. If in my heart I wish, in my heart I know, in my heart I believe, however they'll finish that off. And when they start it off, what really happens is you have kids coming in, some think they're in this popular group, whatever that looks like, and some are down here wishing they had a little more respect and all that stuff, but when they leave, they've gone from this to this, where they're all equal. And for some of them, it's the first time they've been in a room with that many students where they actually felt equal to them. It's a very cool feeling. Some of the emails and some of the parents that I've had come up and talk to me after conferences and after working in the school and that, have just said, you saved my kid's life, because nobody in the school would accept them. And now they came home today and said, Mom, I actually feel accepted. And the tears in the mom's and dad's eyes because of the power of what the students do. It's not me. Like I let them know. I said, listen, I didn't do this. You did. You could have, gone to a certain level, but you decided to go deeper. So you've accomplished this. You did this, not me. I just kind of was like the band director. If you don't pick up your instruments, we're not going to hear anything but crickets. And so I showed you what's possible. Now it's up to you to keep it going. And I think that this is something worth fighting for.
It was interesting. In one of the sessions that Dwayne did at our school, there was a young lady that she wanted to be a corrections officer. She wanted to work in a prison. She was afraid of her shadow with respect to going inside of an institution like that. And she had a lot of emotional scars herself. Yeah. And it was an amazing experience to watch that transition through that small group session with her. And now, she's blossomed. She is a corrections officer, and it's completely changed her whole life. And she told me in an email just recently that it was that semester, it was that experience that really helped her to see herself and to empower herself to not worry about what other people think, that I can accomplish this and I can be successful.
Absolutely. And that happens whether it's university, parents. I have a book, and the reason I have a book is because I had a lot of parents over the years saying, "Do you have a book?" And I went, "No." And they said, "Well, you need a book."
Yeah, tell us about the book.
Well, it's basically parenting with eyes wide open, and it takes what I do with the students, what I do with parents, and puts it into a book. They wanted it as a reference, so I did it as a reference. And so at the back of the book, there's an index of keywords, and it's not just like suicide. Oh, the word suicide is mentioned. No, it's when the topic is discussed that you'll have suicide in the numbers of the pages beside it, because I want it to be truly a reference for the books. There's a couple of reasons why I did the book. Number one is a reference for the parents. Number two is that I'm hoping that it'll get me into other schools in other countries. I have a teacher trying to get me to New Zealand right now because the suicide rate with children in New Zealand is off the charts. And so I'm hoping that will materialize. And the other reason is because my wife and I got a foundation set up to raise money for scholarships for kids that are doing amazing in school. Yet when you look at their home life, you're going like, how did this happen? Like their foster care or whatever, you got this amazing individual, great energy, working, grades are great, like how does this happen? So we wanted to have some money to support them. The other is to raise money to offset the cost of schools, because this is a business, it is a living. I have to make a living to be able to do what I do. But at the same time, if we can reduce the costs to schools for youth programs, that's a benefit. And so that was the idea behind that. And it got accepted earlier this year. And we had our first $20,000 donation last month. So that was really exciting. Great. So the reason that all of you have my business card is because I want you to know I don't go to a community, do this, and then I leave. You have my business card because I want you to have direct access to me. I would encourage you to sign up for the newsletter. It comes out every 2 months. It's not heavy duty, but it's something that could be of value to you. It also gives you my email address and my phone number, so you can call me if you have other questions you want to ask based on this video or any information you've heard, or going to the website and checking it out. Obviously, my recommendation would be get the book, because then you're going to have a very clear picture of what it is that I do and some of the power that I can do. If you go to the website, check out the testimonials, you can see what principals, parents, and students have said. There's also a survey out there that was put together by a University of British Columbia that shows what staff members, parents, and students have to say after I'm finished in the schools and that. And most staff will say, well, if a program's 50% approval or 75% approval, I consider having it in the school. And I think if you look at the numbers, you'll see that it's 100%. I think there's 2 questions where it was 89, 88%. Other than that, it's all in the high 90s or 100%. I think it was 100% in everything from parents. So it's very powerful. And I just want to continue to do this until I die, which hopefully be years from now.
I had the opportunity to read Dwayne's book, and I can tell you that it's a marvelous book. It's very educational to you as a public education individual. That's regardless of what your role is in the education system. But it's also good if you're a parent to read this book. And I appreciate you doing that, because it's an amazing opportunity for people to sit down, read it, understand it, and then call you, because you're very accessible. And that's the thing that's always impressed me, is your accessibility and wanting to tackle these problems and make some changes. And I think that's what we're about, and that's why I think we're such good friends. And Dwayne, I really appreciate you being part of this conference, even though you weren't able to attend.
I wish I could be there.
And hopefully we can do some good things in the future.
Sure, hope so too.
Thank you, buddy.
Thank you.
It.